However, I said the underlying mechanism for the equals method and the equality operator are completely different. And I'm going to prove that by showing you what these methods compile to, the intermediate language code that the compiler emits. To do that, I'll minimize Visual Studio, open the Visual Studio command prompt, and type in ildasm. That brings up ildasm, a tool that lets you look at the intermediate language contained in an assembly. It comes with Visual Studio, so you should be able to do this yourself as long as you have Visual Studio installed. I'll just navigate to the assembly I just built. There it is. And open it up. And there's the arintsequal method. And if I double click on that, what you're seeing here is the raw intermediate language that the C# compiler has emitted for this method. Now, please don't worry if you don't understand IL. You don't need any real IL knowledge to see what I want to show you. First up, you don't need to worry about these LDArg statements, loadarg. Those are just to make sure the values of the two arguments are set up ready to do something to them. The key line I want you to notice is this call, which is followed by what looks like a method signature. And that is the line that corresponds to the line in the C# that invoked equals. So it's fairly clear that the call to equals in the C# source code has directly translated into the corresponding method invocation in IL. By the way, in IL you always specify the full signature of the method you want to invoke. You'll notice the argument here is specified as int. That tells us that this isn't the object's equals method, because that would take an object. It's actually the equals method that comes from int's implementation of IEquatable of int. The C# compiler has picked up that method, because in the source code we're passing an integer to equals, and therefore the IEquatable of int method has the closest match to the argument type. The ret instruction afterwards just returns from the function. Now let's look at the arintsequalOp method, which uses the equality operator instead of the equals method. I'll just open the method up in ildasm, and we'll ignore those loadarg instructions. The thing to notice here is that the call to an equals method has disappeared. Instead, we see an instruction called CEQ. CEQ basically means compare the two values that have just been loaded for equality. At runtime, it'll be turned into a hardware comparison, probably using the CPU's registers. And that's the key thing I wanted to show you. Although .NET offers equals methods to check equality, C#'s equality operator for primitive types actually bypasses all the equals methods completely. It just does a comparison using dedicated assembly language instructions. By the way, if you try this at home, I suggest you do a release build, as I've done here. Debug builds will emit a lot of additional code whose purpose is to assist in debugging, and which you probably don't want to look at.